The Laundering, Volume 2, Case 32, The Future Tense. A national AI plan that protects you in the future and builds in the present. Open the case.
Read the same announcement twice, once for what it funds, once for what it promises, and a grammar appears. On the 4th of June 2026, launching AI for All, the government described how it would protect Canadians from the risks of artificial intelligence. It will modernize privacy law. It will introduce an online safety regime. It will guard against deepfakes and surveillance pricing. Every protection is a verb in the future tense. Legislation not yet written, vague on a timeline with no funding attached. Meanwhile, the things that are real today, the adoption fund, the compute money, the AI missions, the data integration contracts the same government is already signing, are in the present tense, costed and moving. This case is about that asymmetry, protection deferred to a bill that may come, capacity delivered in a budget that already has.
Why not read a national AI strategy as either a gift or a betrayal and argue about which?
Because that argument retires the structure. Strip the verdict away and a familiar grammar remains. The protection is announced as a plan. The device from Case 25, where a council's 4 directions were all process and none a destination. And the contested instruments are deferred to where they are not yet binding. The move from Case 26. Put the two together and you get a laundering that runs on verb tense. The thing that reassures you is in the future. The thing that should worry you is in the present. And the announcement reads them in the same breath.
And the premises?
4. 1. AI has real upside and real risk. A national strategy, public investment, even a health mission can be legitimate and genuinely intended. Granted in full. 2. The strategy funds adoption, compute, and capacity now. A $700 million compute access fund, while the protective instruments are forthcoming legislation, vague on a timeline with no funding attached. 3. Announcing a protection does not deliver it. A line in a budget and a clause in a bill not yet written are not symmetric. One is a fact, the other a plan. 4. The spine. The strategy headlines protecting Canadians from AI risk, while the protection sits in the future tense and the capacity sits in the present, offered as if they arrive together. The asymmetry of tense is the laundering. This is the sequel to Case 31. That case lowered the threshold to reach the data. This one funds the capacity to use it, while promising to protect you from it.
Start with what's real today.
Money is the least ambiguous part of any announcement. AI for All, launched at Toronto's University Health Network, is a multi-billion-dollar strategy. The government projects on the order of $200 billion of economic growth and 250,000 new AI-related jobs over 5 years. And the package includes concrete, costed instruments, among them a $700 million compute access fund to put compute in the hands of businesses adopting AI, work placements for up to 90,000 people, and a flagship health mission. These are present tense things. They have dollar figures, delivery vehicles, and a fiscal year.
And the strategy's stated purpose?
To close an adoption gap and build public trust. That is, to get more AI deployed faster. There is nothing hidden in that. It is the explicit goal. But hold it in mind, because it tells you which half of the announcement is load-bearing. A strategy whose purpose is adoption funds adoption.
Now the other half, the protection.
It is not absent, it is announced. The strategy says the government will modernize consumer privacy legislation, will introduce an online safety regime to better protect social media and chatbot users, and will guard against harmful practices such as deepfakes and surveillance pricing. Every one of these is a verb in the future tense. And the reporting that read the documents found the protection thin where the funding was thick. As BNN Bloomberg put it, the plan is vague on a timeline and what specific measures will be put forward.
Is there a single clean specimen?
The chatbot rule that did not make it in. Proposed restrictions on chatbots for those under 16 were left out, the strategy explained, because there is a current review to determine whether they should be integrated into online harms legislation set for later this year. That is the future tense in a single clause. A protection for children, present as an intention, deferred to a bill that does not yet exist. And the criticism was on the record and across the aisle. The Conservative deputy leader, reading the same documents, said, "The safety and the security that was promised in this is nowhere to be found. Certainly no details."
What's the tell?
Not a critic's, the strategy's own stated purpose. The plan describes its job as closing the adoption gap and building public trust. Read those two together, and the relationship between the halves is named by the document itself. Trust is instrumental. It is the thing you build so that adoption can proceed. Protection in that frame is not the destination, it is the on-ramp. The privacy bill and the safety regime are how you make people comfortable enough to accept the capacity that is already funded.
And the Prime Minister's own framing?
Carries the conditional that gives the game away. AI, he said, can shorten emergency room waits and make a small business more competitive if it is governed by Canadian values. The promise rides on a conditional, and the conditional, the governing, is exactly the part deferred to legislation not yet written. The benefit is offered in the present. The if is filed for later. This is the integration stamp of Case 25 with a clock attached. The safeguard announced as a plan, then post-dated.
Build the government's case at its strongest.
It is not weak. Laws genuinely cannot be passed in a budget cycle, tabling a serious privacy bill or an online harms regime takes drafting, consultation, and a parliamentary calendar, and a responsible government may legitimately fund adoption while that work proceeds. The protections named are real proposals, not nothing. A right to privacy, protections for children, rules against deepfakes and surveillance pricing are worth wanting. Investment in compute and skills can serve the public. And we will legislate is the honest grammar of a measure not yet written. It is not by itself a deception.
And yet,
Grant all of it. The narrow claim survives because it was never that the protections are insincere or that investment is wrong. It is that a funded capacity and a promised safeguard are not the same size, and that announcing them together invites you to treat them as if they were. The honest version would say, here is what we are building now. Here is the protection that does not exist yet, and here is the date by which it will. The laundering is in the missing date, in letting the future tense protection borrow the solidity of the present tense spend. Sequence matters. When capacity ships first and governance ships later this year, the gap between them is a period during which the capacity operates ungoverned.
where is the present tense most concrete?
In procurement, and this is where the case is most careful, the same government that promises a future data sovereignty framework is now expanding its data integration procurement. Reporting by the Investigative Journalism Foundation and others has documented Canadian government contracts with Palantir. the special forces and defense files rising over years into the tens of millions, and a 2026 call-up for a data integration and analytics platform. Even as the minister responsible called the latest deal a legitimate procurement that is moving forward, and acknowledged the promised data sovereignty strategy does not yet exist as an enforceable instrument.
What is this not?
It is not a claim that the multi-billion-dollar strategy is Palantir money, or that the contracts are a secret surveillance program. The procurement is a separate, disclosed line, and merging the dollar figures would be the very overreach this series refuses. It is the asymmetry in its sharpest form. The capacity to integrate data is being bought in the present tense, while the instrument that would govern it, sovereignty, if it is governed by Canadian values, is promised in the future tense and conceded not to exist yet. The thread that pointed here read the same facts and reached louder conclusions. A permanent surveillance state, an industry bailout, dissent recast as a security threat. Those are real positions, carried here as named lenses, attributed and not adopted, beside the government's opposite lens that this is responsible, sovereignty-minded, privacy-first modernization. The series adjudicates neither. It only fixes the tense, capacity now, governance later, and a gap between.
Name it.
A government has a real opportunity and a real risk, and it announces a plan for both. The opportunity it funds: compute, adoption, jobs, a health mission, procurement, present tense, costed, moving. The risk it addresses by promising to legislate: privacy, online safety, deepfakes, the rules for chatbots and children. Future tense, undated, unfunded. Each half is announced in the same speech, in the same protective vocabulary, as if both were already true. The integration is a citizen invited to bank a promise at the value of a fact, and to accept the capacity today on the security of a safeguard scheduled for later.
And the reading test?
When the next plan protects you in the future and builds in the present, separate the verbs. Put what is funded this year in one column and what is promised for a bill not yet written in the other, and ask why the protection is always the column without a date. If the safeguard ships with the capacity, the plan is honest. If the capacity ships now and the safeguard ships later this year, you are not reading a protection. You are reading a postponement.